Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Jose here, welcoming you to another episode of Amazing Worlds, where today I am going to be reviewing / introducing the work of cartoonist, author, writer, artist Joe Sacco. Joe Sacco, one of my favorite comics artists in the world, born in Malta, relocated to the US, moved back to Malta, got started in comics, and proceeded from there to create absolute masterpieces of journalistic comics. So he did a couple of things in Malta, nothing big, moved back to the US, then went traveling around Europe, and whilst he was there, he developed an interest for the wars that happened in the turn of the century in Europe, and started drawing his impressions and the account of his journeys in there. Now, that first sort of autobiographical account of his journeys in Europe was compiled in a volume called Yahoo, published in 2003. But his first major journalistic work was Palestine, a Nation Occupied, in 1993, and then Palestine in the Gaza Strip in 1996, which is this wonderful tome that I've got here in Spanish, which basically it's Joe's account of his journey into the Gaza Strip and interviews he did with people there and how they lived through the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Then he did a volume called War Junkie in 1997, which I haven't got here with me, so I'm not going to talk much about it. Followed up by his absolute masterwork, Safe Area Gorazde, in the year 2000, which actually won him the Eisner Award in 2001. This one I've actually the price is both in pesetas and euros, because it was when we moved on to the new currency, and is basically again the account of Joe's journeys into the old Yugoslavia. Thematically, Safe Area Gorazde was followed by The Fixer, a story from Sarajevo, which again probably something that didn't quite fit in the Bosnian War, so something that got left over on the main volume. And this is Joe's account of interviewing a fixer, someone that dealt with between the United Nations and the warring factions during the war in Bosnia. So it's the sort of follow-up, inherits that theme from there. But again, another leftover from there, it's War's End, which I've got it in Spanish, but in English the full title is War's End, Profiles from Bosnia, in 2005. So again, bits and pieces probably that didn't fit in the main 2000 book. So he writes here on how people got on with their lives after the war and how they're trying to rebuild after that. You got that sort of very haunting cover of the hungry dogs in the streets. Now, followed from there is the really harrowing 2005. I've got this one in English, Footnotes in Gaza. It's a really thick book. And again, it's going back to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This one is kind of runs on two timelines. One, Joe visiting again the conflicted area to hear the accounts of a massacre of Palestinians that took place in the 50s. And I remember this one quite vividly, because the last 2 pages are totally silent. Joe just lets the art and the images do the talking from him about the unreasoned, nonsensical slaughter of Palestinians that took place in the 50s that no one talks about, no one wants to divulge, and it's there. I have to admit, I have to say, Joe, in all his works, he remains fairly apolitical. He's not very partisan. He doesn't take sides. He's much more interested in telling us or showing us the human stories around these conflicts. And possibly out of sympathy for the losers, he tends to show more, the Palestinian side of things here. But this is all his works are all about real people trying to get on with the day-to-day lives and how they cope with the situation they are presented. So, he's not interviewing ministers, he's not interviewing politicians, he's interviewing foot soldiers, mothers, brothers, sisters, just normal people, and he just retelling the stories that he was told while he was there. In some of the books, he actually put himself in danger, and he paints himself in the stories as well. There are a couple more books written there. This one, Reportages Journalism, is actually a collection of stories that he did for different magazines. So it covers issues from Palestine, Iraq, Kushinagar, Chechen women, war crimes, and African immigrants. So they're all kind of shorter stories of things that he's been working on the first 10 years of the 21st century. After this one, I haven't got it. I wasn't really, I didn't like the idea of it, but as on the 100 years anniversary of World War One, Joe Sacco drew a little, I think it was like a 15 page comic depicting the Battle of the Somme, but the idea behind it was that you could open it and open it up and open it up, and it became this massive long one single piece. It was all folded like an accordion, and you could open it and see the whole front of the war, from the front line on the trenches all the way back to the supply trains and everything. But I never got it. Then he also did something called Bump Volume 1. I bugged the Kaiser in 2014. No idea what that was. I only found out about that volume while I was researching for this video. And the next one, his latest work, the last one he's done from 2020, Paying the Land, which is in my radar at some point. I want to get my hands on it, about Canadian Indian tribes and how they were brutally mistreated, driven off the land, blackmail just to access the oil. What do you call it when there's oil under the land? Possible wells, I suppose. So yeah, deeply personal, deeply introspective stuff there, and the artwork is very, very peculiar. His style is totally his own. It's all inks in black and white. There's not great detail on backgrounds. Joe focuses a lot on people's faces, and they're all this ever so slightly exaggerated, cartoonish air about them, but he's really masterful at conveying expressions and the feelings of the people he interviews. So some people's first reaction is like, oh, and for something so deep and so serious, I suspect it kind of makes sense, because if you went for a more realistic, for a darker style, it would make the stories really hard to take in if you combine like a really gritty, hard punching imagery with the story itself. So I think perhaps it's a drawing style that grows a little bit on you the more books you read, and if you really are into this sort of thing, and then it becomes, like I said before, distinctly Joe Sacco. And yeah, I think the first volume for me wasn't quite taken by the art, but following on, yeah, I get it now, and it's absolutely fantastic. Like I said, he draws himself there. It's all there's none of them are in color. There's no color. This is just pure black and white. Bit of shading, bit of playing with light and dark, but not to the level of other people like maybe Frank Miller did in Sin City, or maybe someone like Alex Toth at the beginning of the work that he did during the 20th century. But nonetheless, a very peculiar style worth having a look. But anyway, again, trying to show a different side of comics, something that they can be, something that can be achieved through the medium, and absolutely sensational work. So that is all I've got for today. Thank you ever so much for watching. As usual, please like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. Take loads and loads of care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.